The summer of 1914 marked the tipping point, a moment when Europe unknowingly set itself on a path to devastation. What began as a regional crisis in the Balkans quickly spiraled into a global conflict fueled by ambition, fear, and entangled alliances. On July 28, Austria-Hungary's declaration of war on Serbia ignited a chain reaction, mobilizing over 65 million soldiers and plunging the world into an unprecedented inferno. By 1918, over 16 million were dead, 20 million wounded, empires had crumbled, and the world was forever changed. This war was fought on a massive scale. The Western Front in France and Belgium became a static wasteland of trenches, machine guns, and relentless artillery. The Eastern Front saw vast armies clashing in rapid, deadly advances, while the Italian Alps and Gallipoli brought brutal mountain and amphibious warfare. Beyond Europe, colonial territories in Africa and Asia became battlegrounds, while the seas saw fierce naval warfare, with submarines disrupting vital supply lines. Entire economies transformed into engines of destruction, producing millions of rifles, billions of bullets, and modern weapons like airplanes and tanks. The First World War left no corner of the globe untouched. To understand how diplomacy failed and chaos prevailed is to uncover the story of the Great War's origins. In the decades before the First World War, Europe became entangled in alliances, consumed by nationalism and armed for conflict. By 1914, two major blocs dominated European politics. The Triple Alliance, formed in 1882, united Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. Germany sought allies to avoid isolation. Austria-Hungary relied on German support to suppress Slavic nationalism, and Italy, though hesitant and self-interested, aimed to gain territory. Opposing them was the Triple Entente, finalized in 1907, which bound France, Russia, and Britain. France sought protection from Germany after its Franco-Prussian War defeat. Russia aimed to defend Slavic nations in the Balkans, and Britain encountered Germany's growing naval ambitions. These alliances were rooted in fear and distrust. Germany feared encirclement, France wanted revenge, and Alsace-Lorraine, Austria-Hungary struggled with rising nationalism, and Russia saw itself as Serbia's protector. Britain viewed Germany's naval buildup as a threat. Ironically, alliances meant to maintain peace created a system where any regional conflict could spark a global war. Nationalism and imperial ambitions worsened instability. Serbia's goal of uniting Slavs threatened Austria-Hungary, and colonial rivalries between France, Britain, and Germany fueled tensions. The arms race made war feel inevitable. Germany and Britain built vast navies of dreadnoughts, while European powers expanded armies and stockpiled weapons like machine guns and artillery. This militarization was like a loaded gun on a hair trigger, where even a small spark could ignite catastrophe. By 1914, Europe was a fragile, volatile continent, primed for disaster. A system designed to deter war instead guaranteed it. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914, lit the spark that set Europe ablaze. Austria-Hungary, determined to crush Serbia nationalism and secure its weakening empire, issued an ultimatum to Serbia with demands so harsh they were designed to be rejected. Serbia accepted most terms but refused some critical conditions, prompting Austria-Hungary to declare war on July 28, 1914. This localized conflict quickly escalated due to Europe's fragile alliance system. Russia, viewing itself as the protector of Slavic nations, mobilized its forces to support Serbia. Germany, Austria-Hungary's closest ally, saw Russian mobilization as an act of aggression and declared war on Russia on August 1. 2 days later, Germany declared war on France, Russia's ally. Germany's Schlieffen Plan aimed to quickly defeat France by bypassing its heavily fortified eastern border through neutral Belgium. The plan sought to outflank French defenses, capture Paris, and end the war before turning east to face Russia. However, violating Belgian neutrality inevitably brought Britain into the war. Kaiser Wilhelm II, aware of the danger, tried to avoid escalating the conflict. After conversations with his cousin, King George V of Britain, Wilhelm expressed doubts about invading Belgium, knowing it would provoke British intervention. Yet Germany's military leadership, committed to the Schlieffen Plan, insisted their strategy was already underway and could not be stopped. On August 4, 1914, German troops marched into Belgium, violating international agreements. Britain, in response, declared war on Germany, turning the conflict into a global war. Within a week, Europe's powder keg had exploded. Mobilizations across Europe proved impossible to stop, as treaties and rivalries turned a Balkan crisis into a global conflict. As the war spread, nations around the globe mobilized millions of soldiers, turning the conflict into a worldwide catastrophe. Germany entered with 3.5 million well-trained troops in advanced artillery, executing its Schlieffen Plan against France and Russia. France, fueled by a desire for revenge, deployed 3.7 million soldiers, while Russia raised over 5 million troops, the largest army, but plagued by logistical and leadership weaknesses. Britain, with an initial professional force of 248,000, quickly mobilized over 4 million troops, heavily supported by soldiers from colonies such as India, Australia, and Canada. Italy, initially neutral, joined the Allies in 1915 after the Treaty of London, mobilizing 5.6 million troops to fight on the mountainous Italian front. In October 1914, the Ottoman Empire joined the Central Powers, opening critical new fronts in the Middle East. The Gallipoli campaign saw brutal fighting as Allied forces, including Australian and New Zealand troops, failed to seize the Dardanelles Strait. In Mesopotamia, British forces sought to control oil-rich regions, clashing fiercely with Ottoman troops. Meanwhile, the empire also launched offensives in the Caucasus against Russia and engaged in devastating internal campaigns, including the Armenian genocide, which resulted in over 1 million deaths. These new theaters of war added immense complexity to an already global conflict. Meanwhile, Japan declared war on Germany in 1914, using the opportunity to seize German colonies in China's Shandong Peninsula and the Pacific Islands of Micronesia, asserting its naval dominance in the region. These actions allowed Japan to expand its influence in Asia while aligning with the Allies, further globalizing the conflict. By 1917, the United States, pushed by German unrestricted submarine warfare and the Zimmermann telegram, entered the war with 4.7 million soldiers, nearly 2 million of whom were deployed to Europe. The intercepted telegram proposed that Mexico join the Central Powers if the US entered the war, in exchange for German support in reclaiming Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico. Outraged by this threat and repeated submarine attacks, the US abandoned neutrality. Factories and railroads worldwide churned out weapons and ammunition, fueling an industrialized war unlike any before. By 1918, the conflict involved over 65 million troops, touching every corner of the globe and leaving devastation on an unprecedented scale. The First World War was shaped by the decisions and missteps of its key leaders, many of whom found themselves navigating crises beyond their control. Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany was known for his impulsiveness and erratic policies. Obsessed with securing Germany's place as a world power, his aggressive militarism and desire for dominance alienated neighboring nations. Yet during the July crisis, Wilhelm hesitated, mistakenly believing the war could be contained after Austria-Hungary's declaration against Serbia. Earlier in the crisis, Wilhelm exchanged a series of personal telegrams with Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, his cousin, in a desperate attempt to prevent war. Calling each other Willie and Nicky, the two monarchs pleaded for restraint, but their efforts were overwhelmed by rigid military plans and mounting political pressures. Tsar Nicholas II of Russia faced a difficult choice. Torn between loyalty to Serbia and his empire's internal instability, he reluctantly authorized mobilization against Austria-Hungary. This decision, however, provoked Germany and escalated the conflict. Nicholas's weak leadership and reliance on outdated advisors further hampered Russia's ability to prepare for war. Franz Joseph, the aging emperor of Austria-Hungary, was desperate to preserve his crumbling empire. Pressured by his advisors, he approved the ultimatum to Serbia, knowing it would likely lead to war. His reliance on German support reflected the empire's inability to act alone in suppressing Balkan nationalism. Across the Atlantic, Woodrow Wilson, President of the United States, clung to neutrality for as long as possible. However, German provocations like unrestricted submarine warfare and the Zimmermann telegram forced his hand, leading him to declare war in 1917. The July crisis highlighted the dangerous miscalculations of European leaders. Many believed war could be controlled and short-lived. Instead, their overconfidence and mismanagement unleashed a conflict of unprecedented scale, proving that even small decisions can have catastrophic consequences. The First World War destroyed entire generations. Over 16 million died, and 20 million were wounded. Battles like the Somme and Verdun caused over 1 million casualties each, gaining little ground. Civilians suffered immensely. Towns like Ypres and Verdun were reduced to ruins. Millions of refugees fled advancing armies, and famines, such as Germany's turnip winter of 1916-17, devastated entire populations. The war reshaped the 20th century. Empires fell, borders were redrawn, and seeds of future conflicts like World War II were sown. The First World War serves as a warning of how fear and ambition can lead to global catastrophe. But how could such devastation happen if no one truly wanted the war? If you're as captivated by this question as we are, subscribe, like, and share this video. Together, we can ensure the lessons of the past shape a better future.